All right, welcome back to another episode of J&B Unsupervised. A lot to talk about here. We're going to start off last week's playoff games. We're going to start with Buffalo and Pittsburgh. Buffalo obviously got the win 31-17. Pittsburgh made it pretty close. They made it a little bit more interesting. And for Buffalo, they got a lot of injuries in that game. That's going to be a big thing going forward to this week. One thing I want to start off with is what is next for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Obviously, they were eliminated. What is the next steps for them going forward?
Well, I think personally, it was really funny. I think everybody saw Mike Tomlin walk off the podium when he was asked, "Yeah, well, you left in your contract," and he looked at that lady, and she was like, "Water, she was gone." And I don't blame him.
Yeah,
I mean, I probably would have some more choice words for her as I was walking off the podium.
Yeah.
After a playoff loss like that, that was closer.
That's the wrong question to ask.
The game was closer than the score pertained.
Yeah.
Personally.
No.
For me, I think Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. The fact that Steelers fans personally were calling for his head.
Well,
calling for his head for him to be fired.
Yep.
Or, traded, to me, is crazy.
I have to go on record saying I was one of the people not coming for his job, but saying maybe it was time for him to move on. His voice has been done in the locker room. Like, you've accomplished everything you can accomplish with that team. Like, maybe he needed to go somewhere else. They need a fresh voice. Now, I'm not saying I was right. I was wrong. This was a rebuild year for them, and they still made the playoffs.
It can't be a rebuild year if you're still making the playoffs almost every year. You're not in a losing season. The defense.
We didn't have a losing season last year. Didn't make the playoffs.
The defense is still the top 15 defense.
The problem with the Steelers is the quarterback and injuries.
No, just the quarterback.
Injuries. There was no T.J. Watt. You can't tell me if T.J. Watt's out of that game. There's not a difference.
See, they don't still win it. They don't win the game. They don't win the game with T.J. Watt.
But I don't think Josh Allen rushes like he did.
No, but the score, it looks closer than the score is ballooned up from what it was. The game was closer than what it was based off the score. But with T.J. Watt, the score looks better. But Buffalo still wins. They're still the better team. They have a better quarterback in the playoffs. You take the better quarterback. They don't have no quarterback.
So what do they do with the quarterback situation? Does Kenny Pickett get one more year? Do they go find an offensive coordinator? I don't know how they get a quarterback going into.
Well, they changed off.
Do you go get Russell Wilson? Do you go pick up somebody that's out there, Jimmy G? Like, what do you go do?
Well, they changed offensive coordinators during the season,
which
and
kind of didn't really.
It seemed to have. They got the wide receivers. They got Pickens. They got Najee more involved. They got Warren's, I think.
Johnson.
They got Warren's, the rookie running back, more involved. It was more stable, but I think they have to look at different options at the draft for quarterbacks. I think Russell Wilson is an option for them because he's going to get cut by the Broncos. He's not going to get traded. He's going to be cut too big of a cap hit.
Him and Mike Tomlin.
Would be a pretty good, solid match. I mean, you brought up Jimmy G. That wouldn't be bad either, a system quarterback. If the Steelers move off of him and trade him away, I mean, good.
So Kenny Pickett, in your mind, Kenny Pickett does not get another year.
I was surprised that draft he came out in. There was not a quarterback drafted until maybe the third round.
Okay, that's fair.
Late second.
Okay. So if you're Pittsburgh,
them small hands got him.
I still think Pittsburgh needs to again maybe add a little bit more depth on offense, like a wide receiver.
They have
a veteran wide receiver, not a young guy, a veteran guy. They have young guys on the offensive side, and I think a veteran wide receiver, somebody.
How's it going to make them better?
I don't know.
They have the veterans. They have Pickens or not Pickens. The wide receiver they had is going into his third year. There was a rookie 2 years ago.
Johnson?
No, the other one.
I can't.
You literally wanted him. You literally slided it over to him.
I'm drawing a blank right now.
Oh my! Jesus!
Look it up.
Give me a second. But they drafted Warren, the running back, to go with Najee. Oh.
I just think a veteran wide receiver a little bit. They definitely need veterans in there with them young guys. But
George Pickens.
George Pickens
is going to his third year next year. He is a stud. He's a diva. He just needs a quarterback to get him the ball. You were in love with him.
I do love George Pickens. I think George Pickens has a lot of talent. I really do. But he's also got to mature as well, too.
He needs to mature, but they have George Pickens said you need a veteran. Deontay Johnson has been in the league. He is a vet.
But he's also get another
well, he is.
I do think injuries have played a part on Pittsburgh, too. They do need to find the right offensive coordinator. I will say that. They have to find the right offensive coordinator.
Maybe somebody a little bit different. But they have Najee in the backfield who actually performed well this year.
He did.
With Warren coming out of the backfield with him, that's a pretty
So going forward, Pittsburgh quarterback, QB. Okay.
They got to get a better QB.
Fair enough. The next game to talk about was... let's see. Let's go Rams-Lions. Lions got that win 24-23. Detroit's first playoff win in over 30-some years. Home. I have to give... The fact that Detroit's still standing after a playoff win, kudos to Detroit. Kudos to Detroit. But let's talk about what is next for the Rams. I mean, they drafted 2 studs out of the first round in Puka. Don't ask me to say his last name. And then
no, they were 5th round picks. Fifth round picks was Puka and Kyren Williams. What
is next for the Detroit Lions? Matthew Stafford is not getting any younger, but he played really great. Came off starting came off
elbow surgery. Matthew Stafford did,
and then got it going. They were hurt in the beginning and got it going. Me personally, I'm not worried about the offense side of the ball. I think it's defensive side of the ball for the LA Rams.
I don't know where Aaron Donald's been.
Well,
he's getting a lot of love for not a whole lot. Y'all gonna come at me and say, "Oh, double team." A lot of people come at him. So does Chris Jones. And he still has almost 11 sacks. And he got a sack.
I just think that Aaron Donald came back because of the money. The money brought him back. I thought he really wanted to retire. If I'm the LA Rams going forward, I just think you're drafting well. You drafted 2 great offensive guys in the 5th round.
Well, we were at most of their draft picks now. They're not,
I'm not saying they have to move off Stafford, but you need to think about the future. Looking for an underrated quarterback.
Carson Wentz.
Well,
they picked him up with like 6-7 weeks to go in the season.
But to me, going forward for the Rams is just keep drafting well. There's really not much more to really do outside think about the future after Matthew Stafford.
I just think you just keep building around Matthew Stafford. Everybody was trying to put him into retirement early.
I'm going to throw this out here, and he doesn't know this. Should the Rams entertain moving on from Cooper Kupp to get more draft capital? I'm just saying for draft capital purposes. He's, after winning the Triple Crown, Cooper Kupp, been hit with some injuries, obviously, which is unfortunate. Part of the game, we get it. But if you're the Rams going forward, you drafted Puka, you have a running back that's a stud. Do you think about moving on from Cooper Kupp for draft capital, or do you just try to build on? I mean, I don't know how old Cooper Kupp is. He's still got to be young. He's got to be mid-20s. How old is Cooper Kupp here? He's got to be mid. How old is Cooper Kupp here?
Come on now.
Do you build around that off?
30.
30. Ooh, 30. So I think maybe you entertain. Not saying you trade him, LA. But open up the telephone and see what he's worth.
It's going to shock him. I think you trade Cooper Kupp. You have Atwell.
Wow, I didn't see that coming.
You have Atwell that kind of fell down a little bit, but he was a rookie that came on very strong.
Yep.
Fantasy guys, I drafted Cooper Kupp in the first round. Knowing you're going to come back, I was going to stash him. And he just didn't have that punch. And in the playoffs, where was he? Where was the dude?
Well, the biggest question that we always had about the Rams was we didn't know who Puka was when he came out. He started getting.
Well, he was a rookie.
He was a rookie. Started getting these 100 yards.
I also had Puka in fantasy. Picked him up in the free agent pool. I'm just saying. I did have Puka and Kupp.
When it came on to the season, you kept looking at the box score and you're like, man, Puka 100 yards receiving, touchdown here, and then we were all like, well, let's see if you could do that when Cooper Kupp came back because Cooper Kupp going to get targets. Yeah. And he's continued to do it.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Cooper Kupp gives him that ability to do it because Cooper Kupp's going to attract a double team. You have to. I mean, you have to respect Cooper Kupp's game. But Puka showed you in the postseason as well, both
of them had good games against
granted, the Lions, I'm not over.
Puka was
glazing on
way
Puka.
better.
You have to come back and do it again next year. I'm always
He
about,
does.
can
You
you
gotta-
redo it again?
Yes, exactly. I
So,
100% agree.
but and you take away, I'll compare it to Juju and AB. AB was there. Juju looked really good. AB left. Juju never cracked 1,000 yards. Subpar.
Took him to Kansas City and almost had a 1,000-yard season.
Almost, if he didn't have, obviously have
Juju
some,
who in New England.
yeah. So,
Quarterback who.
but I as a comparison, I'm not saying that those guys are comparable. I think Puka is a lot better route runner catcher than Juju was. Can be more versatile. But again, if you're the Rams, I'm not saying trade him. Open up to ideas. See what you can get. Not saying that you're shopping him, but just pick up the phone. See what you could get for
I think
him.
someone offers them a top 15 pick. I think you gotta take
You
it.
you have to.
But Cooper was coming off a pretty significant injury.
Yes, he was.
And trying to come off something like that is hard to do, especially
It is.
at 30 years old. It's hard to do. But having Cooper Kupp on a massive contract and having a rookie on a rookie deal compare well with Matthew Stafford, Tyler Higbee. He did get hurt in the last game.
He
by,
did.
A lot of people were saying the guy that hurt him, he dirty. Dirty.
It's I will
Matthew
always
Stafford,
say.
he came out and said, bro, you dirty. If you dirty, you're a dirty player. I mean, you know how you hit guys in the NFL. You're trained how to tackle. They show you how to tackle.
Man, I just go back to Larry
very
Fitzgerald.
low.
Hit me in the head. Don't hit me in my legs, man.
Not hit me in my head. Hit me in my upper body. Hit
Upper
me in the
body,
shoulder. Hit
obviously.
me in my torso.
Don't hit me in my
knees.
legs.
Don't hit me in my knees.
Like again, I get it's football, but it was a tough play. I don't think he meant to be dirty, but it came off dirty-ish, which is unfortunate. But again, like we said, if you're the Rams going forward, those are the things that we think going forward. Let's move on to another game that kind of
for the Rams. We think they just should keep drafting well.
you got to
Steelers, I think you got to try to move. I think it's probably about time to move on from Pickens. Maybe the draft, you trade up. Maybe we'll get one of these studs. Maybe they get from Washington. But for the Rams, I think you're right there. I think you just keep drafting well.
Keep drafting well. And you got to remember too, the Rams were hurt to start the year. They came off obviously sluggish, picked it up in the end, obviously, but nonetheless, great season to the Rams. Obviously, getting in, doing what you did, you made it close, competitive with the Lions. Just fell a little bit short. But move on to the next game that shocked a lot of people. Well, it shocked their fans. Didn't shock us. Was the Cowboys-Packers game. The Green Bay Packers beat the Cowboys 48-32, but that score does not tell the whole story. Dallas did score some garbage touchdowns in garbage time to make it look a little bit closer. But again, I've said this before I turn. I've said this and said this and said this many times on TikTok, to when we're just talking to friends and whatever. I do not care about what the Cowboys do in the regular season. What can you do for me in the playoff? And you do nothing. Nothing. And before I let you talk, at what point you talk all this stuff? You got Micah Parsons, who I love. Micah Parsons, I do. But it's excuse after excuse with this Cowboys team. You had that defense with this offense, CeeDee Lamb coming out party, and you let the Green Bay Packer who beat you in Dallas, where you were unbeatable all year in Dallas? I'm not even a Cowboy fan, and I'm disappointed in the Cowboys. Like, all the hype, and this is what you do? Come on now.
I've got to follow Stephen A, and I'm not surprised. You let the Cowboys build up, and then when it matters the most, y'all crash. I am not surprised they crumbled. The last time they beat the Packers was 2007. I am not surprised. I called it as an upset. I had the Cowboys winning. I picked them in my bets for the Cowboys to win.
I did pick Cowboys.
But I told everybody I would not be surprised if the Packers upset them. Jordan Love, first year as a full-time starter, looking like Aaron Rodgers.
People were coming for his head mid-season.
And he had the same stats as Aaron Rodgers.
A little bit better stats.
Aaron Rodgers last year with the Packers missed the playoffs. Jordan Love makes the playoffs.
Basically same roster. Same roster.
I mean, outside of maybe a couple additions here or there, but offensively, same guys, same head coach. But they annihilate them. The Cowboys defense, which was their stalwart, what they leaned on, Where? All I saw was wide open guys catching passes. Nowhere to be found.
That defense
was trash. Micah Parsons talks a lot of talk. He's one of the top 5 defensive ends / outside linebackers in the league, and he's not 5 or 4. And he talked, and then he got offended when people came at him personally and said, "Where you at? What did he do? Where were you at? You guys won the division. You ain't there. How do you let the wild card team beat you at home where you were
first 7 seed to ever win
in the new playoff format?
First 7 seed. So
how do you let them beat you?
Kudos to Jordan Love, man.
Yeah,
you have to give Jordan Love the respect. You have to give Jordan Love respect. He silenced a lot of critics, like in that game.
Well, they came out and said they're going to have to give him a new contract.
But again, and this is my problem with the Cowboys. And I said it in the beginning. I don't care what you do in the regular season. What can you do for me in the postseason? Okay? That's always been for me for the Cowboys.
Well, you're making money.
And then it brings me on another subject. Dak Prescott is due for a new contract, and there's been talks to make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league.
$60 million.
And I have to ask, is a quarterback that's only won you 2 playoff games since he's been in the league, is he worth that? Is he worth it?
No.
I say no.
No.
And I have to come to an aid of another guy that I loved in the league that a lot of people like to shit on. Cam Newton. Cam Newton came out and said, Dak Prescott is a game manager. And people ate him up. Obviously, he had some other quarterbacks on the name. But people came for Cam. And we're not talking about a guy that was a scrub in the NFL or college. We're talking about a Heisman winner, national championship winner, an MVP in the league, went to a Super Bowl. Cam Newton was a game changer. He was not a game manager. There were times where he managed a game, but he was a game changer. Cam could open up a game. When I think of Dak Prescott, and Cowboy fans, if you want to come at me and say that Dak's a game changer, I guess you believe what you want to believe. When I think of Dak, I don't think of Dak as a game changer. You relied on, when you thought of the Cowboys this year, what did you think of? Offense or defense? I thought of the defense. I never once thought of the offense. Not one time did I think of the offense. I thought of their defense because their defense sat their offense up in great field position with turnovers, pick sixes, fumble. Their defense did it all.
The head coach doesn't even believe in their quarterback. Coming into the season, what did he say? We gotta run the ball. We gotta throw the ball. We gotta throw the ball. We gotta run. We gotta control the clock. I don't care. I'm not trying to put up 30, 40 points. Like they
were you shocked that Mike McCarthy's returning?
Oh, absolutely.
Were you shocked?
Knowing
that Bill Belichick is sitting out there?
How do you not go get Bill Belichick?
In the waters?
If Jerry Jones thinks Dak Prescott can still be that guy to lead them, how do you not make the change at head coach so you retain the head coach? Why? What did he do that is so great? The DC gone. He's going to go.
Dan Quinn. He's probably going to Seattle. We'll get to that later in the episode.
But he gone. He's going somewhere. He's taking the head coaching job. After that playoff game, the performance that his defense put together, well, that's trash.
So,
he gone.
Again, the real question is Dak worth the money?
If I'm Dak, I'm taking less. You got to take less to keep everybody around you to keep you looking good. You gotta pay CD. You gotta pay Micah Parsons.
Has Diggs got his deal?
Yeah, he got paid this year.
Okay.
He got paid this year. And Tony Pollard, he on franchise tag. He gone. He was a disappointment. He was coming off an injury very late in the last season.
He had that tibula injury or fibula injury, wasn't it?
I think it was his like ankle or shin area because he got that hip tackle they're trying to ban.
Again, and I'm not trying to make fun of Cowboys fans or shit on, but at some point you have to stop all of this.
It's our year. No, how about you live in the present? 1995 was the last time y'all were relevant when you won the Super Bowl.
It's just
that's the year I was born. Y'all are old. Y'all ain't won shit. All right.
It's just
how about
at some
you actually get somebody? You think Dak is the guy? Who do you want? You want Dak? You want Josh Allen? Or Mahomes? Or Burrow? Or C.J. Stroud? I'm thinking C.J. Stroud over Dak Prescott.
Oh, absolutely.
We get y'all trying to pay this dude $60 million to lead the Dallas Cowboys, the America's team, which by far none is no longer the case.
It's disappointing that this team lost to the Packers. And I'm not trying to disrespect the Packers because they came out, they played their game plan. But Packers who? Adam Jones ran all over that defense. Now, granted, Adam Jones was fresh, hurt pretty much all year. He was fresh, and he came in this game and just lit that defense up. Okay.
But do you think the Niners are going to let him do that though?
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
That defense.
But you lost to the Packers, who literally have not a single soul on that offense outside of Adam Jones. Christian Watson, kind of been a disappointment. That's somebody I wanted my Kansas City Chiefs to go get, and we got Sky Moore, who's not no better by any means. But we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later. But again, if you're the Cowboys, what is next? What do the Cowboys need to do to finally do something in the postseason?
What are you going to do?
What
do you extend Dak? You're about the head coach back.
Well, you have no choice but to extend Dak because you're, like you always like to bring up to me when we talk about this. Who are you going to go get? Is Trey Lance the answer?
That clearly not the answer.
We don't know. We don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they... Clearly, there are going to be some guys that are leaving, and there's clearly guys you got to pay. Now, Dak is due for a contract extension, but I do believe Dak still has another year or so on the contract. Micah Parsons.
He's due.
CeeDee Lamb's coming up.
He's also, you got to pay these guys now rather than later. They're all coming up to be paid.
Again, when you really think about the offense, you had CeeDee Lamb on the offense. They drafted the tight end. I can't remember his name. What was the tight end's name? The rookie that they jumped up and drafted.
I can't remember the rookie they drafted, but I know they used Ferguson year-round until he got hurt. But he's a stud, too.
Again, for me, I'll say this. If you're Dallas, you need to go get a serviceable running back. There's going to be some guys that are available. There's Jerry Jones, Austin Eckler, Saquon are for some names that are out there. Derrick Henry, a Dallas native, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me. I believe he is. There's going to be a lot of wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb needs somebody else on the other side of him. I get they have Brandon Cooks, and Brandon Cooks is a very serviceable wide receiver. But he's not that dude in the instance of, to take pressure off of CeeDee Lamb.
Just imagine, Cowboys fans, if you would
Amari Cooper!
If you would have paid exactly...
Amari Cooper, you had him, baby!
Dak Prescott, when you should have, you would have been able to keep Amari Cooper.
CeeDee Lamb right now? Oh, yeah.
And Dak, with Tony Pollard in the backfield, with that O-line, with Micah on the defense. You guys would be looking good instead.
This is going to be this coming season is going to be interesting for the Cowboys. If going forward, I say you need a running back and another wide receiver.
They were running back.
Outside of that, pretty much everybody's coming back.
The results are going to be the same running back.
Let's see. The next game let's get on to is let's talk about the Eagles and the Buccaneers. The Eagles-Bucs game was another shocker. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won 32-9 against a team that was in the Super Bowl last year. Mind you, the Eagles started the season 10-1. Let me reiterate that. They started the season 10-1 and then lost the remaining 6 of their last 7 games, including the postseason game. Where did it go wrong for Philadelphia? How do you start 10-1 and then collapse? It literally collapsed right after they beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Was their coach, mouthed off to the Kansas City fans?
Again, that's for a whole other subject. But
about being
what happened?
Well, that comes to leadership. It's not a different conversation. It's literally leadership. Your head coach is mouthing off to fans.
Head coach is definitely immature.
A win.
And that's taking all bias out of it as a Chiefs fan. All bias. Your head coach is
the top 5 coaches in NFL history, even top 10. Even current coaches now, you will not find them mouthing off to fans.
No.
Telling them to shut up, take that, whatever he may have said. You will not find that from the elite coaches. He's very immature. It came out that he's a very immature, give him that young head coach, but you still are a head coach of men. You can't be caught saying that.
Obviously, notable things about Philadelphia that was different this year. They had a new offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, and it showed that they missed
their defense.
Their defense
heavily all that talent, and that's what they got.
What's the corner's name?
James Bradbury.
That dude need to be at the league.
I guess he got benched.
He got to go, baby.
By some no name. He got benched by some no name corner.
In the
playoffs, in the biggest game.
It's sad too because again, before we even get talking about the Bucks, I picked the Eagles to win the game. I thought playoffs you had the best matchup against the Bucks. We for sure thought they were going to come in and they were just going to click. Okay? And then that was far from what happened. Throws were not accurate. Routes were ran wrong. Two guys in the same area looking at the ball go over them. Another interesting thing in that game is A.J. Brown did not play. A.J. Brown was in a lot of conversations of heated exchanges with Jalen Hurts, coaches, players, the media. I'm not saying A.J. Brown is turning into a diva, but divish behavior this season. Again, I think A.J. Brown will still be on the Browns, but I do definitely think, obviously the head coach is going to remain. That's already came out and broke. You got to look at a new offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, and they need to establish an actual leader in that locker room. There was a report that came out that the Philadelphia Eagles wanted Jalen Hurts to take more accountability for the struggles of the Eagles, and I honestly took offense to that. I've been a Jalen Hurts fan. I've watched his highlights in high school. I was a fan of him at Alabama. I was upset when he got benched at Alabama for Tua. I was a huge fan of him when he went to Oklahoma and balled out, and I knew the moment he got drafted by the Eagles, he would be taking over for Carson Wentz because of that whole debacle, and he would be a very good quarterback. To tell somebody that gets on the podium and takes accountability, in my opinion, that he needs to take more accountability, I thought was super wrong by Philadelphia, in my opinion.
I don't know how much more accountability you can take than what he's taking.
He's got on the point, I want to be great. I take it personal. The dude was literally practicing how to hold on to the ball in practice. And people made a big deal about it. What do you do in practice? What are you supposed to do in practice? You're supposed to practice the things you're not good at or you're struggling with. And people made a mockery out of it. Are you kidding me? A dude, did it suck that he had to go do that? Absolutely. And the fact that the media and people made a mockery out of that was crazy to me.
I agree.
What are you supposed to do in practice? Not practice? The whole Allen Iverson argument. We talking about practice. He's practicing his craft. I don't know what else more you want from Jalen Hurts. Obviously, it was a bad year for him. He knows that. We know that. I feel bad for Jalen Hurts. Like I said, I love Jalen Hurts. And I'm a Chiefs fan. Been a Chiefs fan my whole life. I love Jalen Hurts. But whatever happened to Philadelphia, it happened. It crushed that whole team, and they were never able to find it again.
They fractured.
It fractured. Whatever it was bad. I mean, even in the playoff game, Dallas Goedert, right? Dallas Goedert?
Yes.
And was yelling. I apologize. He was arguing with Hurts on the bench, and Hurts just stared at him like, bro, you were hurt. You've been back. And he even said post-game that, a lot of it was on him. He missed some catches. He did. But, I mean, they were hurt. Philadelphia was hurt. Obviously, Jalen with his finger. A.J. Brown didn't play.
I mean, in Hurts' defense, he was banged up most of the year. He did have the lingering knee injury going into the postseason. He did have, his finger that got messed up in the last game of the season. That's not an excuse
going forward
on what happened
throughout
the rest of the season when they were 10-1. How do you go 10-1?
And then collapse
like that. When you have pretty much...
It would be different, if you lost a game here or there, whatever, trying to rest guys. But it was a full-on collapse. Yeah. You're supposed to enter the playoffs hot. They enter the playoffs...
Cold. Antarctic cold.
Antarctic cold. Bad. Going forward, what does Philadelphia need to fix? I'll give my opinion first. I think you need to think about the secondary. Their defensive line, I love. The defensive line, I think, is fine. It's the corners and the safeties and the free safety that need to be... The secondary needs to be addressed. And you need a new defensive coordinator, and you need to think about a new offensive coordinator, because whatever plays you were running, whatever you did in the first 11 weeks, you went away from it in the back half because I don't know what happened because it was not the same team. Those are what need to be addressed for me, and you need some leadership. I don't know if it's a wily veteran that's not really going to play, just somebody in the locker room that's like, that's going to hold everybody accountable. They're missing that guy that's holding some people accountable, in my opinion. But what do you think Philadelphia needs to change?
I mean, I agree. I think it's defensively their weakest spot is the secondary. I mean, it's been preached over and over again by everybody that the weakest part for them is the secondary. I don't necessarily know if you need a more veteran team because they have a bunch of veterans on defense. I mean, Fletcher Cox, for example, on defense, but offensively, I mean, I think they do need to look at something different when it comes to offensive and defensive coordinator. They lost both of them not this season, but the previous season when they made that run. Both offense and defense coordinators, they both left. I think they messed
and you
up
said
on
that was gonna haunt them coming the season end.
And
you
could not. I didn't see Hurts run. Where was Jalen Hurts running? Where was the RPOs? Where was the read options? Got him out on the edge.
You went got Swift and barely used him, in my opinion.
And
you used him in the beginning.
How was Swift in week 1 not the starting running back over Gainwell? Gainwell's a solid, complimentary back, but he's not your number one. How was Swift not the number one guy right off the gate? Why did Gainwell have to get hurt for Swift to get his opportunity? Right there, you knew you had to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And to me, you had 2 defensive coordinators, technically. You had one up in the booth, one down on the field. Get down on the field, interact with your guys, and get them hyped, and get in their face, and get them going. Offensively, you gotta do something different. How do you run a scheme?
I don't think
the guy leaves, and then you don't run a scheme
Obviously, the offensive line was one of the top offensive lines in the league. Obviously,
Still was this year.
Jason Kelsey is retired.
Potentially.
Potentially.
We don't know.
But offensively, I don't think they need to make any changes. I think some guys need to be held more accountable, mature up a little bit more.
I think AJ Brown needs to mature up.
I'm talking to you, AJ.
That you ain't.
I love you, AJ. But let's not
be a diva, bro.
Let's not be a diva, bro. Like, everybody's got to eat. If you force feed you all the time, my guy, we've seen how sometimes that doesn't always work out.
Diggs.
But obviously, I'm looking for a bounce back year from Philadelphia next year. I really hope they have a bounce back year. And again, this coming from a Chiefs fan. I expect big things from Philadelphia next year. You hear me, Philadelphia? I'm expecting big things. But make those changes, in our opinion. I think that will make you better.
New DCOC.
Moving on to another game, another quarterback that made his playoff debut. Houston versus the Browns. C.J. Stroud. Wow. And this is a quarterback from Ohio State who's is a school not known for making really good quarterbacks recently or lately at all. Like, let's get into obviously right off the bat, Houston won that game 45-14. A little shocking how they won that game in the instance of how great Browns defense was, but it's hard to overcome when your quarterback throws back-to-back pick sixes, which we always said was going to be the Browns' Achilles heel is Flaccoing it away, and the run ran out in the playoffs. Again, that defense was stellar all year for the most part. Obviously, unfortunate for injuries on the offensive side. They went through 4 quarterbacks. Joe Flacco came straight off the couch. Going forward, what do the Browns got to do? One of the big things I think we need to talk about is the Deshaun Watson debacle. You gave him all that guaranteed money. It's been a very big struggle for that offense when he's been under center. We've seen other quarterbacks come in under center, and they've looked a whole lot better. They've thrown more yards, touchdowns than Deshaun Watson has. And this is from, at one point in this league, we were talking about Deshaun Watson being up there at the top. And now, obviously, with things that have happened in his personal life that we're not going to discuss because that's done and over with, no reason to harp on it. But what do the Browns need to do going forward? I really don't know what the Browns need to do going forward because you can't get from underneath Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's a starter. Like, I don't know really where they go. They have a great tight end. Obviously, Chubb was hurt, unfortunately, but they still were able to do what they did. You got Amari Cooper. What do the Browns need to do? Obviously, injuries played a role this year. But it's hard. In the AFC, the talent is just so...
I mean, they have potentially their franchise quarterback. I mean, obviously, hopefully, where they gave up, because they gave up a lot for a guy that really hasn't played a whole lot in the past 2 years. Or
3 years.
Or really in the 3 years. He hasn't played a whole lot for 3 years, but hasn't played a whole lot for 2 years that he's been in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Got hurt this year, didn't play. I don't know, suspension and whatnot. The first year he was there with his fully guaranteed deal. And for me personally, yes, where they got to go defensively. I mean, they're sound. They're a great defensive team. The head coach is, probably one of the better head coaches, one of the better offensive minds. But I think they got to get somebody opposite of Amari Cooper. He's getting a little bit older in age. You have another option to throw to. I mean, Chubb will be back next year. I mean, Cooper will be there. Give him another option offensively. Give him more weapons. Be a little more lethal. That might help. But, I mean, that's kind of a run it back, draft well, develop, and...
Yeah, there's really not much more you could really do. I have to agree with you. Just do those things. I think you'll be all right. Obviously, you need to keep Deshaun Watson healthy. Maybe beef up that offensive line a little bit more. Because obviously you got to protect your quarterback. If your quarterback's getting hit and getting hurt, it's recipe for disaster. Just ask Joe Burrow. I mean...
Joe Burrow's a prime example of all of that. His rookie year, he tore his ACL because the offensive line could not hold up at all.
Yeah.